Hello and welcome. Dave Downs here again to host another one of our web series. I have joined today from one of our squad leaders, Sondra Monaco. Hey, Sondra.
Hello.
And one of our client advisors, Adam Walsh. Good morning, I guess, Adam.
Good morning. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. How are you guys today?
Doing well.
Doing very well.
Good.
Thank you.
We are going to have a fun conversation today because I think there's a ton of excitement. We're headquartered here in the Denver market. Obviously, the weather here is always a bit goofy. It snowed yesterday. It's going to be 80 this weekend. But the encouraging thing is spring is here. State of Colorado has inoculated, vaccinated over 2 million doses into arms. There is encouraging news. So we're going to take a little bit of a dry topic in most times, budgeting, and we're really going to kind of put some stories to this and see what's going on in the marketplace with two people that are in our clients' lives and businesses day in and day out. Super exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of sales trends, how people are adjusting their budgets and looking forward into the spring. Are they being conservative or are they being a little aggressive with their forecasting? I'm really curious as to where this conversation will go today. Let me start, Sondra, with you, and we're going to kind of tie a lot of this back into that budgeting frame of mind. In terms of sales, give me a story. Tell me something fun that one of your clients is doing that you thought was really unique, really interesting as a way to help drive sales. And that can be as vague as that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a client in local Denver, and obviously, as Dave said, with our weather, it's up and down, and we're trying to open our patios here. Everyone knows the increased sales you can get from just that extra little square footage. And so with our weather, what they've done is they've offered a beer and a blanket. There was a grandma that was making some really cheap polar fleece blankets. So for $10, you could get yourself a beer and a blanket, and it increased their retail sales. They pretty much paid for both the beer and the blanket. And, if you have that person who's warm and comfy there, they're going to order another beer. So it's just really increasing their sales overall in that patio.
I love that. It's such a fun way. Now, were they branded or were they logoed in any way to tie it back to the business?
I don't think these were, but I think that that's definitely an opportunity to get your name out there. I mean, people are going to use this blanket. They'll probably bring it back and people are going to see them and they're going to say, I want one of those. So you're going to see those sales increasing over and over by just having that logo on there.
Such a fun thing. And who doesn't need a blanket? Well, at least in the northern states, who doesn't need a blanket just kind of hanging out in their car in case something happens, right? That's perfect. Adam, shifting gears a little bit, as you've been working, day in and day out, working in clients' businesses and helping them build out budgets and help them tie everything together in one of the most ridiculous years that I can imagine, the last 12 months or so. What kinds of things are you seeing? Are people taking a pretty conservative approach? Are they being aggressive? Where does that land? Is it maybe different throughout the country in terms of the markets that they're in?
Well, I think in general, most clients have been pretty scarred by 2020. And so most of them are taking a very slow roll approach to building their budget. They're bringing over, November and December sales and kind of projecting those through, up until March. And then most of the clients that I've worked with say they don't expect a return to full business until, midsummer, at best. Now, what I've seen in reality is quite the contrary, and I think that a lot of my clients that I've worked with budgets on have been perhaps overly conservative with those projections, and what they've seen is a real skyrocketing in sales, end of January all through February and now into March as well.
Do you, and maybe this is completely anecdotally, but do you attribute that to positive news, people getting vaccines, or weather changing, or is it really a combination of multiple factors? And if there's others that I missed, which ones are you seeing?
I mean, I would have to say that it's a combination of all of those things. Certainly, the weather improving has really helped. Especially, I have clients in Chicago who have been seeing nicer weather recently, and have been able to start getting outside and really bringing in those patio sales for them. But yeah, I think for the most part, like you said, it's a combination of things. Certainly the vaccines are helping. And I think people are just really anxious after a year of mostly lockdown to go out and have fun and just to spend time in those restaurants and bars that they're accustomed to.
Personally, for me, it's going to feel real when I'm at a concert in a small venue inside. That's when I'm going to say, okay, this thing is really behind us, and it's. I think we're still a ways out from being able to see that. I guess it kind of is a logical flow. We talked a little bit about budgeting and forecasting in sales, and kind of some of the things that people are doing to creatively drive those sales, to whether they're conservative or a little bit more aggressive, in what their forecasting may look like in the upcoming few months. As we kind of continue down that P&L, let's talk about cost of goods and some of the primary factors that may be driving a budget versus actual successes or misses in some cases too. Sondra, I'll come back to you. Are people doing anything? Are our clients doing anything regularly to adjust forecasting or budgeting on cost of goods? Are they seeing anything, any types of constraints or anything there that would lead them into changing those numbers?
I think that we definitely have to take into consideration higher prices. With supply chains, just the need for certain products right now. There's just definitely been a delay in the country with just getting those products produced, and so there are prices going up due to that. So definitely factoring that in and making sure that you're considering those increased prices in that budget.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And Adam, to kind of kick that over to you too, what kinds of ways are our clients are they looking at those cost of goods with regularity so they can understand if they need to go back and fix their budget or kind of fine tune things?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I work with my clients on their budgets with is understanding that costs are higher now. I was working with a client who does a burger joint, and Angus went through the roof last year.
Yeah.
During the height of it, it's kind of come down a little bit, but he's anticipating higher prices, at least for the foreseeable future. And so one of the things we plan on as we do the budget is, we want to keep their meat cost at a relatively stable percent, but we do have opportunities to kind of look at reducing that meat cost as the year moves forward, for them. Obviously, close attention to the commodities market in that regard is really going to help them keep an eye on that. But especially for burgers and steaks and things like that are very beef driven, it's a huge impact on them.
Yeah, I know fine dining was probably the segment that was most hard hit over the last year, and I just read an article yesterday too about farmers are not planting what they call boutique crops. They're really going back to basics. The romaines, the icebergs, they're getting back to the really fundamental core products. So it'll be interesting if the fine dining segment still has a little bit of a tough road ahead of them in terms of their pricing and those kinds of things, just based on, as you mentioned, the commodity prices and what's available out there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Moving down again, kind of going down, stair stepping down that P&L. Labor. I know this is always one of the primary challenges in most businesses in general, but definitely in our restaurant sector. Sondra, labor. What's going on? What are you seeing? How are people doing? Are they able to staff? What's happening out there?
I think our industry is definitely going to struggle with labor this year. COVID's definitely presented some fears in terms of those positions. So I think it's definitely going to be important that everyone is budgeting potentially for higher labor costs. You want to possibly increase those pays to get those valuable people in those positions so that you can accommodate the sales that we're going to see. So that's going to be a really big struggle for our industry this year, and just making sure that we're adequately staffed for the sales that we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, I think staffing is going to be our next big hurdle to clear. Adam, alongside that, recruitment. In terms of getting people through the door, what kinds of things are people trying? Are they getting creative? Are they bumping pay? What's going on in terms of client lives day in, day out?
Yeah, I haven't heard nearly. I agree with Sondra with there's going to have to be some sort of push towards increasing pay to attract those people and get them in the doors. The most important thing that I emphasize to my clients, especially from a budgeting perspective, is budget a little higher for labor than you might otherwise. If you come in lower than that, fantastic. But really, the most important tactic for them is to get in front of it, is to continue to hire. One thing, like I mentioned, with sales increasing, faster than people anticipated, that's going to require more people to run those business. And so, staffing for your needs a month from now is really the way that you want to look at that. Especially when you're building out your budget. So yeah, you may be running a little bit of a higher percentage in the near term, but long term, that's really going to help build your business and build your brand.
I think also looking at those other benefits that you can offer, health insurance is a big one. And if you have the ability, I think that could be a really attractive way to get those people in the door. Paid time off structure. There's a lot of opportunities in just those extra little benefits that could make your business more,
attractive,
special than the others.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's not always about pay, although even more so now than ever, we're seeing that that push to $15 minimum wage. I don't know that we'll see that this year necessarily on a federal level, but definitely by segment. I've seen strikes in the fast food market in 100 different cities throughout the country, striking for that $15 minimum wage, and definitely something that you want to get onto the budget, so at least be able to plan for as maybe you're setting out a course to plan and get there. In the back of the house here in the Denver market, $15, you're not going to get anybody in as a line cook or anybody at that rate, even pre-pandemic. So the $15 minimum wage is a little bit of a misnomer, but it's definitely something to be able to plan for. Kind of again moving down that P&L a little bit in terms of budgeting. Really, when we get into direct operating costs, the main thing, as I've seen in the last year, that's driving that increased number is kitchen supplies, to-go packaging, those kinds of things. Guys, what are people doing? And I know you have to have those. Gloves are $192 a box. Adam, what are folks doing out there to plan and budget for that correctly and make sure that segment of the P&L isn't breaking the bank?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that we have to anticipate higher costs, at least in the near term, when we're looking at those disposables thing, just because the demand is so high right now. But much like the commodities market, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect those prices to return back to normal. But I think that having an eye on that and making sure that you're planning for it ahead of time will allow you to kind of weather the storm, so to speak, right now. So maybe you budget 3% for your paper products, whereas in a normal year you might do 1.5 to 2. I think that again, being more conservative in that regard can only help you make better plans moving forward.
Shameless plug here. What can RASI do, Sondra? I was going to tee you up on that one. I was going to softball you there.
Well, I was actually going to say, I think it's really important to also factor in soaps and chemicals. We do need to clean a lot more in our new state of the world. And so that is definitely going to be an increased expense that you want to budget for and make sure you're counting.
The hand sanitizer at every table, at every turn of the restaurant. Yeah, just everywhere. Being able to see that stuff around. The RASI purchasing program and in our purchasing department over the last year has really doubled down. When we saw the increase in Q2 of last year compared to what people normally spent on that to-go packaging, that disposables contract that we put together with regional distributors has been a phenomenal resource, and typically somewhere between 15 and 20% savings straight off the bat there. So again, kind of tip of the hat to the purchasing team there, and definitely something that we're working on to help offset that cost increase as much as we possibly can in any segment of the P&L. One thing I'm curious about, Sondra, as we're kind of going through this here, with a much higher increase in to-go, in delivery services, if you're offering those, the comp segment, and something I don't always dive into when I'm doing any analysis for a broad scope of clients or a prospect, someone that may be coming through the sales process. As you're with those clients day in and day out, are we seeing an increase in comps because the quality may not be as good when they get it back home? Has that been anything that we've been able to quantify on our side at this time?
I haven't haven't seen too much of an increase in comps. I think more of them are those building business comps of getting those repeats back into those delivery services. I ordered delivery last night and it was a really welcomed coupon there of, hey, you've done this enough. Here's $10 off your order. And you know what? I'm going to go back because it builds up. So I think definitely there's some area of opportunity there for just some building business and keeping those people coming back through that delivery service or maybe even outside of that delivery service. If you have someone picking those up, really addressing, hey, call us directly and maybe we can offer you, a potential new discount
or free dessert or something to that effect. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, one of the things that, again, working on clients with budgets that I'm very, very careful with is that when we're looking at areas to cut costs, I think it's really important to drive away from that advertising expense in terms of trying to save money there. To Sondra's point, those building business discounts are so important right now. People are primed and they're ready to go back out, and anything that you can do to attract them to your business or put you top of mind is really going to help you, I think, long term. And so those dollars are very, very well spent when we're looking at it from a budgeting perspective. To Sondra's point too, a lot of restaurants that I've worked with are really trying to take advantage of the DoorDash, the Uber Eats, the third-party delivery services to drive business to their own website where they don't have to pay those delivery fees. One of the things I recommend to a lot of my clients, and a lot of them do, is, throw a $10 promo card in with every DoorDash delivery and say, this is usable if you go order on our website. Again, shameless plug here. We have a partnership with Bento Box that will help clients drive business to their websites and ultimately use those third-party deliveries, less as a lifeline moving forward and more as an opportunity to really reach guests and customers that they may not otherwise be able to reach.
I love that.
Yeah, it is, not a shameless plug for Bento Box. They are the best at what they do in terms of being able to help turn that website into a money-driving, revenue-producing thing for the restaurant. Not only is it vital to have one, but then if you can make that a revenue center where you're able to sell gift cards or blankets, any of the retail type of things, in addition to your core product, which is the food and beverage offering that you're trying to get out the door. Nobody does that better than Bento Box. I'm glad you brought that particular partnership up. And it is worth noting that over the last year, so many really successful folks have taken this opportunity as a way to understand how to help try and reinvent what the near future may look like. Delivery and to-go are not going to stop just because we can have people sitting on the patio or in the restaurant, maybe at the bar very soon, and being able to be in a little bit closer quarters. So just understanding that allows you the ability then to really hone in on delivery and takeout systems and make them better for your guests, the experience overall better. The last real thing I wanted to get on the table today before we kind of wrap up and summarize, and thank you again for your time, Sondra and Adam, in sharing our client stories and what we're seeing in the marketplace, because I think there's so much positivity to draw on in being able to understand that, yes, spring is coming, winter is behind us. We are moving into spring, and then it will be summer. And not only are patios open, but I did want to at least kind of go back in the last year and talk about some of the things that people had to do to be able to survive when the times were really tough. And one of the main things that comes to mind is the rent abatements, or maybe deferring some of their rent payments when COVID was really presenting challenges last spring. Adam, what kinds of things have you seen in terms of adjusting budgets to include repayments? How are folks planning for that so that they're making sure that they're still able to achieve their profitability goals?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, a huge shout out to those landlords that worked with restaurants to allow them to stay open and stay business by abating a lot of that rent. But yeah, many of the budgets that I've worked on, we have their baseline rent payments as we're building out the budget. But now is time to start using the high times now to begin repaying that to their landlords. And so that is definitely a consideration and definitely something that's really important when you're looking at the bottom line, is to get yourself caught up. Again, I keep saying it. It's one of those things that if you can front load it onto the front now, then obviously as time goes by and things return to a more normal situation, it'll obviously position you in such a way that you can continue to be successful.
Cool. Anything else from your side, Sondra?
I would just say keep an eye on that cash flow statement. You're going to see where your cash is going, and if you're seeing an increase to cash, paying down that debt when you got the money is really going to help you in potential slower times. This boom might not keep up for forever, and so really preparing for what's going to be happening later this year, even.
I love it.
You had to have the financial statement plug from the accountant.
Yeah. Guys, thanks so much for your time today. I always love, hearing the stories of the clients, the creative things that they do, like the beer and the blanket to drive sales, to create a good guest experience, to create something memorable that the guests can then kind of take home as well. It was really interesting to learn a bit more about the conservative versus aggressive approach and how people are really forecasting sales. It sounds like primarily they're a little bit more on the conservative side, which I understand after the last year we've been through in our industry. Just adjusting and keeping that budget fresh so that once we get into the spring, the summer, and into the beautiful fall weather that's coming, all these restaurants will really be poised for success. So I appreciate you both and really applaud the work that you do with our clients day in and day out. Thank you so much for taking a bit of your time and chatting with us today.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
You got it.